Welcome to another week of Brew Sky's Booze News. I'm Mike Morgan. I'm the eye candy around this joint. Who are you?
They call me the troll. Well, as always, like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. This is Mike and Bret of the Brew Skies Network. We have this wonderful Booze News show, which you're watching right now, so thank you very much. Also, we have a whole history of craft beer, an oral history of craft beer. It's the Brew Skies Happy Hour podcast. You can check it out here on our YouTube channel or wherever you can find podcasts. And make sure you follow in our YouTube channel for new content as it continues to develop. We have a lot of fun video stuff coming later this year and into next. And the best way you can really support is buy us a beer on Patreon. I mean, what, $5 for a beer? Just buy us a cheap-ass beer. That's all we need. And then next time we see you in person, we'll return the favor. So on that, let's get into the news. The shutdown, the government shutdown of 2023.
Yep.
It's happening.
Great.
We've been calling it for about 2 months now. It is official. Old Kevin McCarthy has put that nail in that coffin, and we are going to be shutting down. So if you are a brewery owner, you work in the industry at all, or if you have anything you got to do with the federal government,
do it today.
Yeah, like you're out of time.
Actually, by the time this airs, you're just screwed.
Yeah, this is it. This is the last day. Good luck to everybody that's in the federal government. Who knows how long this dumbass shit is going to last, but we can only hope that your savings will last longer than the Republicans' made-up agenda. So, right. Good luck.
You know what I hate about all this? Like, every time there's a government shutdown, I wish that the city of Cincinnati government would shut down. Like, it never happens. It doesn't do anything useful or positive, and if you just shut down the Cincinnati city government, it'd be fantastic. But they never do that. They just shut down federal parks and whatnot.
We don't have enough day-to-day exposure with the feds for it to really impact us in a meaningful way.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Unless your trip to Yellowstone gets canceled or whatever. But.
Well, it jams me up because, you know, I have some permits in process right now with the feds. I have label approvals I constantly need done. I have formula approvals for different beers. Like, it's going to really jam me up. But, you know, like we did last time, and what I recommend all small brewers do, submit your formulas and your labels to the federal government, and then just release the beer anyway. It's not your fault they shut down. You're paying your taxes. They're dickheads. You're not. So just do what you can, and they're not going to come after us. Well, Mike, we also have some news about your investments in the wine world.
Oh, good. I hope they're doing well.
Well, they're not.
Damn it.
As we all know, the wine industry is a victim of climate change, like we all are.
It's not real.
Victimism or climate change?
Both. No, victimism is real, man.
Victimhood does not exist.
Victimhood.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Witch hunt.
Are we just saying words now? Are we just throwing gobbledygook out there? No, look, the wine industry, it's coming to a point where you can't just pretend climate change doesn't exist anymore. Investments, money, is starting to be at risk in Napa Valley with all the lack of water, with the increased wildfires. The traditional growing regions of France are starting to struggle, and northern areas are starting to look really good for wine. So there's two options for winemakers, and I'm curious what you think is best for them.
Move to Cleveland.
Well, that's one. Do you move north, or do you invest heavily in trying to find GMO solutions to climate change problems?
Bury your head in the sand and move to Cleveland.
You hear
it's a beautiful city.
Well, it's right next to the lake. You got the lake effect. It helps.
Yeah, I was up there last week. It's really, I mean, I hadn't been in Cleveland in a long time. It's a great place. Just, yeah, you know, just quit moving to Phoenix.
I think that's the answer.
I don't know. I mean, really, the question, seriously, at this point, is how long it's going to take to reverse what we've already done. And it's ugly. I mean, this trajectory, what it's going to do to all sorts of industries, you know, in addition, I mean, there's positive things like Florida's going to be underwater, but, you know, it's going to impact so many aspects of life that I don't know what the answers are right now. And the fact that Joking aside, we still have a lot of elected officials that deny it's a problem. Is a real problem.
Yeah, those are all very valid and true. I kind of hope that at the end of it, if we figure this out, and at the end of the day, I think wine growing regions will probably just end up moving north with a combination of GMO happening. It's going to be both. I just hope that we can democratize wine a little bit more and remove the elitism associated with it, at least in our country. You know, in other parts of the world, you can get cheap wine, you can get good wine, and it's readily available. It doesn't need to be expensive. And tying up the price of wine with land ownership and all the other bullshit class-related issues we have in this country, hopefully we can kind of fix some of this and make wine for the masses again.
Wine for the poor!
I think that was the original stance of the Pope, wasn't it?
I think it was what the French Revolution was about.
Oh, well, today I learned.
That or bread.
Speaking of terrible things, Kentucky, your home state currently.
Yeah.
Well, your residing state, your birth state is Ohio.
We're Commonwealth, yes.
Yes, the Commonwealth. Congressman Barr has introduced a new act. Have any idea what it is?
I'm sure it's dumb as hell.
You would think. Surprisingly, it's actually pretty great.
Yeah.
It's the White Oak Resilience Act. So if you're not familiar, bourbon has to be made from new oak barrels in order for it to be legally qualified as bourbon. Now, that oak is more often than not white oak in America. And white oak, with the bourbon craze right now, is actually
expensive as hell.
It's very expensive, and we're not planting trees fast enough to keep up with demand. So we're actually looking at potentially making bourbon extinct in this country if we don't do something. So in a crazy great move from Congressman Barr, they're actually putting this act into Congress in order to increase the sustainability of white oak agriculture in the U.S. in order to save bourbon.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty great, huh?
See, that's the thing with climate change. You know, you just have to find the right incentives. You gotta impact, anytime you impact the rich, inconvenience the rich, that's when you find solutions to stuff.
I think that is a great way to put it.
Get people drunk on bourbon, apparently, is the...
Well, considering there's more bourbon barrels in Kentucky than there are people living in Kentucky,
really,
you need to protect your constituents.
Yeah.
So that to me makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of Kentuckians I've met are dumber than a bourbon barrel. So,
well, you know, bourbon barrels probably pay more tax than a lot of Kentuckians do too.
Well, yeah, it's taxed. It's taxed.
It's taxed every year. Every single year that bourbon sits in oak, it is taxed. With beer, it's only taxed when you put it in a can and sell it. I can put it in a can and keep it on my property, never get taxed on it. Bourbon, if it's in an oak barrel, sitting in a warehouse, every single year you pay excise tax.
Wow.
So it's a huge tax base. So you got to protect that.
There's a legitimate basis aside from time and space for why a 7-8-year-old aged bourbon is
expensive.
As expensive as it is.
Yeah, it is not cheap. It's not cheap to make. All right, Jim Koch had a wonderful quote this week that I'm very excited to get your feedback on.
Sure.
Now, if you're not familiar with Jim Koch, he is the founder and owner of the Boston Beer Company, aka Sam Adams, Twisted Tea, Truly, and Mike actually did an interview with him, which is coming out soon. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the Brew Guys channel so you can be first to see when this interview comes out, which should be relatively soon.
Jim and me.
It was a great interview. I love listening to it. You guys are going to love listening to it. But he said this week about the craft beer industry, this is what success looks like. The industry today is what success looks like.
What the hell does that mean? Well,
to add a little context, what he's saying is that when craft beer started in 1980, the fact that craft beer today is over 10% of the market, pushing up to 20 by dollars, and it's like 15-ish or so by volume, that when they started craft beer in the 1980s, they would have never have guessed we would ever get this big. So to keep in mind that even though craft beer is doing bad right now, actually this is way better than anyone ever dreamed 40 years ago.
Yeah, sure. I think he's right. I mean, I think there is some over-exuberance. But certainly, I mean, the fact that we went from something like 50 breweries in the United States, that's total, not craft, like 50 breweries in the United States in 1980 to having over 10,000, headed towards 15,000 craft breweries right now. That is really an incredibly rapid growth, especially since most of it's happened since the 2000s. It's the last 20 years.
Yeah, there was a lot of big growth early. The 90s kind of stalled a little bit, and then you're right. Ever since the 2000s, it's just been on a rocket. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're just having a couple years of flat to maybe slightly down I don't think it's a bad thing. I think he's right.
Yeah.
Within context. Now, this is also coming from a guy who doesn't even make the majority beer anymore at his brewery. He makes Twisted Tea and Truly, and then Sam Adams is like, what, 40% of their total sales at this point, maybe 30?
He's also like one of the 1,000 richest people in the world.
He is a billionaire.
So that tends to skew your perspective, I think.
He has won. So
it's what Jim Koch is what success looks like. That's for damn sure.
He's like, this is what success looks like. Look at me. Yeah. I did it.
Beer's doing great, bitches. I don't know what you're talking about.
I have 3 yachts. What do you have, dumbass?
Well, he is really, it's a thing that people say. When I met Jim, I was really impressed by what a just legitimately, genuinely nice guy he is. Really kind of down to earth. Good dude.
It's actually shockingly nice. You hear a lot about billionaires and their top hats and monocles and caviar eating asses.
Yes.
But he was a Midwestern guy. It's really nice.
You should have to wear a monocle if you're a billionaire.
Top the federal government just ships you a platinum monocle, and you wear that now.
Yeah.
Well, somebody else agrees with Jim Koch about craft beer being successful, and it's Market US. They have said that they expect craft beer to grow another 10% in the next 10 years. Craft beer is currently a $103 billion a year industry, which is huge. Mm-hmm. But they expect it to get over, 115 billion or so within the next 10 years. So they don't see negative growth coming at all. They actually see an increase of on-premise driven growth. Granted, it's not a lot. 10% still good though, over the 10 years, percent a year or so. And they see that happening only through small local breweries. They think that people want regionality, and they think beer tourism is going to actually, that's what's going to be the driving factor of growth. Much like wine tourism, a huge thing, beer tourism is only going to keep growing.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, that where I think you're going to see success is not this. There's only so many regional breweries we can have that become, that are shipping to 40 states.
Yep.
What success is going to look like in craft beer in the years ahead? I mean, it's going to look like Jim Koch for a few people, but a very few people. What success is going to look like for most people is running a profitable small business that makes good beer and has a role to play in its community and its neighborhood.
You're going to work your ass off to make $60,000 a year as an owner, and but people will benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I love this idea of tourism-based growth in the beer industry. I love this idea of they really hammered on regionality. Yeah. Like this region of the country and these breweries are known for this style and this is known for that. And we already have that.
Is that true?
That's what they're saying. They expect more regionality to develop over time, which I kind of really like. I want.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, it would be, because right now I don't find that at all. I mean, wherever you travel, I mean, I always go to breweries whenever I travel anywhere, but the beers, have become shockingly, depressingly homogeneous.
Yeah.
It's the same, everybody's following the same trends regardless of where you are across the country.
It's funny how more breweries you get, the more homogeneity occurs.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the opposite of what you would think.
Correct. You would think people would really start to try to stand out by being different, but it's not what happens.
No, and it would be really nice to just have like New England IPAs be limited to New England and West Coast IPAs be on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And it's an experience when you go there, not when any brewery you go to anywhere in the fucking world anymore. It seems like they have half the list is New England IPAs, the other half is pastry stouts, and I'm left wanting.
I will say from what I found drinking my way across Vancouver Island recently, the beer styles were incredibly predictable. I mean, everybody was making the same 4 basic beers. And they tasted a lot alike, but there were a couple of hops that they were using a lot of up there. And so it gave the beers, you know, they kind of stood apart a little bit.
Taste coming through from the hop usage that's different from the U.S.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And I mean, it was fine. It was kind of cool. So yeah, it exists a little bit, I guess.
Continuing on with this theme of craft beer winning right now, the best-selling IPA in the country. Any idea what it is?
Best selling in the country, well, it's probably like Elysian because it's AB InBev owned.
It's a Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA.
That also does not shock me.
You know what the second best selling IPA in the country is?
One of the other.
It is one of the other Voodoo fucking Ranger IPAs. You know, out of the top 30 craft beer brands by volume, 10 of them grew. So top 30 by volume, 10 grew. Of those 10, how many are IPAs?
I don't know. Well, now that we call, you know, these milkshake New England concoctions IPAs, it's probably 8 of the 10.
9 of the 10.
Yeah.
And you know what the other style is of that 10 that didn't grow? It's fucking Golden Ale.
Yeah.
And you know how many of the top 10 brands that grew out of the top 30? How many breweries are independent craft breweries? This is all just craft beer. We're talking about the top 10 growing craft products.
The top 10 products. God, it's going to be a depressingly small number. I would say 4.
It's 2 products from one brewery, Sierra Nevada. That's it.
Oh my God.
The rest are AB InBev, Kirin, or any other large corporate brewery. It's
crafty beers.
Craft. It's all, and that they're saying this is craft. So like, this to me says like, yeah, we won in that Americans have a great selection of beer more than ever, but we've also lost in that craft is dead to me. It means nothing anymore.
Well, look, here's an industry question for you. The Brewers Association has a formal definition for what constitutes craft beer.
Yeah. Which has changed a lot over the years.
It's changed, and it's something like you make less than 6 million barrels or something.
Yeah.
There are 2 rules that are specifically tailored around Sam Adams and Sam Adams' acquisition of Dogfish Head to make sure those still get defined as craft, which, given history, I'm fine with, actually. But nevertheless, that definition does require, I mean, Dogfish Head still gets classified as a craft beer because it is owned by a craft brewery.
A publicly traded craft brewery.
Right.
Making
that makes
a lot of beer.
Tea.
Yeah. Makes majority non-beer products.
Yeah. But all of that aside, nevertheless, all of these, those 9 beers, they don't meet that definition. So how do these, I mean, shouldn't there be a requirement that if you're going to put out a list of what craft beer has done, that those things have to meet the industry definition of what a craft beer is?
It's not the industry definition, it's the Brewers Association definition, which is different. There's 2 main lobbying groups within beer. There's the Brewers Association, which has largely been for craft breweries. Then there's the Beer Institute, which is for all breweries, largely the big ones. Then you have this other players, which are the companies that track scan data at grocery stores, at chain stores, and all that shit. And to them, they don't give a shit who made it, and they don't give a shit what the definition is. Blue Moon's craft beer to them. And Blue Moon's the best-selling craft beer in the world by dollars, which actually Voodoo Ranger is really close to overtaking Blue Moon for the first time in like 20 years, which is kind of crazy.
I don't hate
to them,
Voodoo
they
Ranger.
don't. They just lump all craft beer together. If it's not an American light lager or premium lager, it's craft beer. So that's why we're talking about this data and these only one independent. Because if you actually look at the BA definition, the only thing on that list is Sierra Nevada. Everything else is crafty or craft-esque.
And that one, by the way, we interviewed Ken Grossman, who owns Sierra Nevada, in episode something of the podcast for episode 4 or 5, something like that. But Ken Grossman also really nice guy to interview. I mean, that was a phone interview. We haven't hung out and got drunk with him yet. But the fact that Grossman started that brewery in a garage, basically, in 1980, and he still owns it. I mean, he's still running it. That's an incredible thing. I mean, the fact that they didn't go public, that they haven't been acquired, that it's still family owned. And his son, you know, they opened this huge new facility in North Carolina, in Asheville, and his son runs that one. So Sierra Nevada, as this continuing family business, is it's kind of unique. It stands out, and it's still really good beer.
They're the most craft of the largest craft breweries in the U.S. by far. I don't think that's even a debate. I think Jim Koch is an amazing steward of beer, an amazing steward of good beer.
Yeah.
I would probably not say it to his face, but I don't think that Boston Beer is a crap beer company anymore, but that's okay. Moving on. The UK, they're also attacking problematic drinking behavior. And the UK International Alliance...
The university in Lexington?
The United Kingdom.
Oh.
The International Alliance for Responsible Drinking is put out...
Fuck those people.
They put out a new handbook pamphlet for bartenders and pubs across the UK to change how they speak to customers to encourage lighter drinking behavior.
Oh my God.
Instead of when someone finishes a beer asking same again, or if someone orders a liquor drink and asking them if they want a double, say when they order a pint, would you like a small or a large? Are you sure you want another beer instead of same again? Behavior that's going to hurt these pubs' business is what they're encouraging.
See, people are always asking me, like a lot of places, how, you know, do you want a small or a large? But I have never thought of that. That's like a Rorschach test, I guess. Like, I have never thought of that as a question that's encouraging moderation on my part. I mean, there's always an obvious fucking answer to the question.
I get mad when I get asked that question.
I want the biggest. You have one as big as my head? Because that's what I want.
Who do I look like to you that I want a half pint? Get the hell out of here with this shit. Bring me the 20 ouncer. Yeah, I'm right there with you. So there is a list that just came out from Up Rocks. Now I know when I just said
that garbage can's overflowing. I'm sorry.
So I know that Up Rocks isn't the most reputable of websites.
What the hell's Up Rocks?
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
They do stuff. They put out a list of the 10 most underrated beers in America. I'm going to give you one guess to guess what fucking beer made this list that just is ridiculous. Now, for some help, this list came out on the 12th of September of this year.
Bud Light.
No, Anchor Steam. Which hasn't even been being produced for over a month at that point in time.
Nice.
Somehow it made it to this list.
Yes.
So if that just shows you how little they fucking know what's going on.
Right. Anchor Steam is we also interviewed Fritz Maytag in like episode 3 or so of the podcast. And, that beer, it's an old style, that steam beer, it's a California thing. And I hadn't drank it in years. So we started occasionally drinking Anchor Steam after we did that interview, while we did that interview. And it is a beer that stands out. I mean, it's a unique beer.
Yeah, it is.
When they made it.
It's cool. It's got a lot of history about it, which we can get into another time and place. But why it even exists in the first place is really neat. And it is a great beer.
Yeah. And we have, we've been following this whole attempt by the workers at Anchor Steam to buy the brewery a little bit, to the extent that we can, and we've talked about that a few times, and we've been trying to get a hold of somebody to talk to on this show about Anchor Steam and the employees' attempt to buy it, but thus far we have not.
So make sure you're paying attention, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're getting involved with Brew Guys, and as soon as we get a hold of somebody, which we will eventually.
And also, if you're one of those people out there, would you return my fucking email?
Mike, we're running out of time, but why don't you give us the quick rundown of what happened to Donald Trump, Don Jr., Eric Trump, and the Trump Organization being found guilty of fraud and being dissolved?
losers.
And that is the official attorney input on the situation.
They lost summary judgment motion, which means that they lost the case. And summary judgment, what that means is that the evidence, it's hard to win a summary judgment motion because what summary judgment means is the evidence is so goddamn overwhelming that you either don't have a case to prove or you don't have a case to defend. And that's what happened in the court this week, is that this judge ruled that the evidence, this mountain of evidence that the Trump organization had been committing blatant and perpetual and ongoing fraud was so overwhelming that
it's not even worth going to court. You are so lost. We're done.
Right. Yes.
So as we all thought.
Yeah, and what to me is interesting about this on a broader scale is what the political implications are, because, we're in really crazy political times, and there is nothing that Donald Trump can do that negatively impacts his poll numbers with the people that worship Donald Trump. And in fact, the more crimes he commits, the higher his numbers go up. But from a campaign, campaigns these days, they're all about money. And I don't know how that guy is going to get past a primary and into 2024 and not be bled dry by all of his various trials and lawsuits.
He's going to run out of money. And at the end of the day, people with a lot of money are going to stop trusting their investment in Donald Trump that's going to give them a return. Because they don't care if he's crooked or not. They just want a return on their investment.
Right.
And at some point, that return's not going to happen anymore.
Right.
And at that point in time, the money will officially dry up. What I'm curious is, what could he possibly do that would isolate his base? Now, we don't need to get into it a lot, but I'm feeling like
Bud
something
Light.
with a hand job might do it. Bud Light? Yeah, Bud Light's good.
He would drink Bud Light. That's going to...
Give a hand
He doesn't
job
drink at all.
To... Well, we don't need to get into it anymore. Long story short, let your mind go to where it wants to go, but thank you for that wonderful insight. Now, our last segment here is the question of the week. Mike, I got a question for you, and I know we all are going to value your insight here. So,
I doubt it.
And please hit us with your feedback in the comments below, because I'm really curious what everyone kind of his take is in the modern day with how things are just absolutely just fucked with inflation and the economy and all that stuff. Mike, what is your current drink tipping etiquette?
20%.
20%?
Yeah.
Even if it's cash? If you're paying cash, do you still do 20%?
If I'm drinking beers, I tend to tip $1 for a beer.
Mm-hmm. And 20 years ago, that was an insanely good tip. And I used to do the same.
Yeah. But, I pay with cash increasingly less.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I don't... it's usually pretty standard, 20%. And these days, when I get a beer that costs $8, I feel like a dick if I'm only tipping $1, even though what
like
the bartender
15% or
did
so.
was, turn around and got a beer and opened it for me. Sometimes they don't even open it.
Well,
but
yeah, I'm right there with you. Anymore, if it's credit card payment, you get the receipt, it's just the flat 20%.
Yeah.
If it's cash, I still kind of try to lean towards $1 a drink, but it's fucking whatever. It's fucked.
yeah, anyway, that's like a beer. I mean, if you're making
that's true.
If you're making a really good cocktail, then it's a little
if you're
more
making
of
a rim
skill
job
set.
colada, you're gonna tip, $2, $3, $4.
Sure, I don't know. I'm going to order one of those.
We're gonna investigate this latest tiki trend and get back to you next week.
What bar are you going to?
What exactly that is.
We love you, people.
Cheers.
Have a good week.